the regular scheduled meeting for the St. John Parks and Recreation Board meeting held on Tuesday, August 18th, 2020. We all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call.
Yep, so Tyler, you usually call the roll, and if there are any roll call votes, also take those, but just make notes as to which members motion and second
Sure.
on those forms.
Sure. Thank you. John Boersma?
Here.
Mike Moffett?
Here.
Mike Bovat?
Here.
Patrick Connolly? Here. Craig Phillips?
Here.
Wayne Pondinas?
Here.
And Michael Schilling.
Okay, thank you, Tyler. Before we move ahead, I just wanted to comment too that the last board meeting, I forgot to formally acknowledge Johnny Bozema is on the park board. I'd like to thank Johnny for being part of the park board. Thank you, Johnny.
My pleasure.
And with that, I would like to bring up approval of minutes for Tuesday, July 21st, 2020. Consideration of approval of the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And at this time, we're going to have a presentation by Tony Duddy with the Community Garden Project. And I think she has some assistants with her possibly. Come on up, Tony. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tony Duddy. I live at 9136 West 107th Place. And tonight I'd like to talk to you about the proposal that was submitted for Heartland Park Family Gardens by Marla Durnay, Veronica Williams, and me. This proposal is based on a location suggested by town council members, which is east of the animal control facility on White Oak Avenue. The garden area would measure 75 by 100 feet. We're advocating for the garden in order to meet a specific need of the town's residents. St. John has parks for the children, ponds for the fishermen, and ball courts for the athletes. But what about the nature-loving gardeners? I would say senior citizens, but I do believe that the garden will appeal to all age groups. The gardens will provide opportunities for residents to grow food, flowers, and herbs, reconnect with nature, get physical exercise, expand their gardening knowledge through interactions with other gardeners. Families who garden together will be able to educate their children on the fascinating world of gardening. It can teach them responsibility, cause and effect, and build self-confidence. It will be a place for those who don't have space at their homes to garden. Our vision includes hosting educational talks and demonstrations at the gardens to spark interest and promote learning. The gardens will encourage community interaction and be a relaxing place to visit. The proposal establishes the garden with 40 raised boxes, will be surrounded by 6-foot fencing, and have a water supply into the garden. Annual rental fees per bed will be charged. Additional beds, including ADA-compliant beds, can be added as demand grows. Feedback via social media and verbal interest gathered the names of 30 potential gardeners. As word spreads about the garden, we expect interest to increase. So as they say on Shark Tank, who wants to get their hands dirty and help our garden grow?
That's a good one.
So I assume that you all received the proposal, and I was wondering if you have any questions.
I actually have a lot of questions. The location. the location that was suggested, the little kids play soccer there,
Okay.
kind of like the little pee-wee soccer league plays right there. And I also think it's a little too close to the road. So I went out there today to look at it, and I would think the north section of the animal shelter would be way more suiting than in front of the animal shelter. So,
So that'd be between the building and then the entrance to Heartland?
yes, there's
Okay.
that big grassy knoll right there that's just sitting there empty, but that's just a question that I had about it. I just think in front of the animal shelter wouldn't be that hot of an idea. So,
But that would still be accessible for the parking lot?
oh yes, there's parking, to the east of it, to the west, or to the west of it, and to the
Oh, right,
in the
for the-
animal shelter.
Used to be a house right there. Then we used to train in it. I think now there's a bunch of picnic tables and stuff.
So where that house is that you're talking about, that's a separate parcel of property. That is not park property, that is town property. So that wouldn't be that's not for the park. If you look on a GIS, there's a square, and Tyler brought that up the other day. It is marked for the town. That park doesn't own that. And they had a house there, there's a well there, I think the well's still functioning. And all they're doing is saying where that spot is, move it over to that property. If you've been out there where the picnic tables are, from there to the road, and that's you can probably still put 75 by 100 foot in there. And that might be a better idea what Johnny's saying.
And I like the fact too that the concrete pad that's there where all the benches are right now, that could be a future metal pole barn for any of the like lockers. People can bring their own little sheds for all their gardening tools but
Right,
Or could it be a,
because that's a
Building?
section,
and then you got the well right there too that can very
That's
easily
where the
tap
house
right
is.
into the water source.
so there was a house here.
okay.
We knocked it down.
Right.
And there's a sewer line coming out of that, and there's a well.
And then also the liability insurance. Who would be responsible for that?
The town.
The town would be responsible for that? Okay.
Who's building these? I mean, is there a contractor that's gonna do it, or is this gonna be Public Works?
Well, there's different aspects that would be, just different aspects of the garden. So the first part would be, the tilling and leveling of the soil and bringing the water in so that we could have spigots inside the garden. We assume that would be done by the town. On the first page of the proposal, the bullets down here list the items that we assumed would be administered by the town.
Well, she's in front of the building here. That's what they're gonna put right there.
Yeah, I did research into the community gardens, and ladies, I'm a fan of it. I am. It does bring revenue over the few years that it does. Like seeds, people selling the seeds, packets of seeds and all that. So it has brought revenue before. I have seen it. And I do think it's a great idea. But I think also there's a lot of questions that kind of need to be filled in before anybody can approve any of that. So,
I think if it goes to that property that you're talking about, now it goes back to the town council. Because that's not park property anymore.
well, if you look at the area in front of the animal shelter, there's not a whole lot of room. And let's say that it was so successful that you wanted to expand it. Now you're limited. And if you bring your little kids or grandkids out there with you, it's just a little too close to the road for my liking, on White Oak. So that's why I wanted to maybe,
We measured it, we stepped it out and we did measure it, and it was significantly away from the road. That's a large parcel actually there.
Yeah.
It's also a sunny location. The parking access was outstanding. It was our thought that many of our communities in Indiana have multiple community gardens. Towns of our size have several. This would be our first. So if we were wanting to expand beyond 60 in the years to...
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry. If we were needing to expand down the road because this was so successful, and quite frankly, we've had dozens of people inquire and express interest, we were hoping that down the road, we would be able to find a second location in our town, you know, maybe a few years down the road. So, but there's definitely adequate room there for 60 plots.
You say 60? 60 plots?
There's room for 60 or more.
If you get a chance, so you would be pulling in the same drive
Okay.
regardless of the location. So if you were pulling straight in, heading west on that drive, you're talking to the property just to the south. So I'm talking about the property, same drive, directly to the north, which is bigger than the front part. So if there was room for expansion, then maybe. But I don't like that location because the kids play there. They play soccer there. That's the only spot that they actually can play soccer. So I would hate to see the kids get taken away of their soccer games. And if the parking is the same on that north parcel, it would be the same. Nothing more would be affected by it, I don't think. But if that has to go to the town council, then I think we should table this until we can get better answers.
We did not look at that. It was the town council that suggested the area that was directly east in front of the animal shelter.
Yeah.
So that's all we
Jerry
looked at.
Sweats and I went out there, and at first it was gonna be where the fire station is supposed to be, out there in the gates. It's kinda low, so we started thinking, and then we said over by Heartland Park, and we came up with that plot. We thought that would be good, but then I even told Jerry that if the park ever wants to expand, we're gonna have a fence to move, they want a shelter, they want, things, and I don't know if we should commit to that. Maybe like you say, John, if we move it over, that might work out better, and I talked to the ladies, we wanna find a spot that's going to be more or less permanent. And I had told you, I was gonna go and look by the baseball fields, because I wanted to put it by the t-ball field. I'm like, no, this ain't gonna work. I'm not necessarily liking a 6-foot fence, a 4-foot, 5-foot fence maybe, but if you put the fence up right away, I don't really want to do that right away. I want to see commitment from everybody. I want to see some money, or somebody's going to say, okay, we got $5,000 committed to this, so the town don't have to put in as much. And you guys, are buying some of the wood or whatever, and maybe not fence it for a year or two. I don't know.
Well, you
But-
got to keep the critters out.
Well, yeah, I know, and the human critters too.
And another thing that I had brought to my attention here was possibility of getting sponsorships for the box. You go all around to the local businesses in town, sponsor a box, $100, instead of the $40 fee that the residents would charge. Then, who would want their name slapped on the front of that box really big, supporting that? So that's another idea to get sponsorships.
We were kind of thinking more of the sponsorships for building the boxes. Each box is about $200 between the
Right, okay.
lumber and the soil. But then to have the revenue from the rentals to help pay for the water and for the upkeep and,
Yeah.
the maintenance of it.
I kind of looked through this pretty good, but I didn't see, would there be one person in charge of it? Because I do, yeah?
Yeah, I want to know.
Yeah, because let's say the maintenance ain't being kept up, and I know you said you got a little fine, which I think that fine too is also a little friendly. One person should, go out there constantly monitoring it, because we know that it does happen, and so we would hate to see money being spent and beautiful and for everybody interacting, and then it to be let go, and somebody's like, okay, I'm gonna pay a $10 fine, no big deal. No, make the fine a little harsher.
Yeah. And so, last year, when there was an ordinance that created the community garden, sorry, my glasses keep standing up. there wasn't enough detail in that document to really say what the committee would look like.
Right.
But certainly that could be something that could be set up either in that document or just in the, like, bylaws of the garden.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I was curious about too, like, you know, this is a lot of work that somebody's done already, so who's gonna oversee and administer all these things? It would just be you ladies, or you're hoping to?
That's what that ordinance kind of made us the committee. I know Jerry said that there were some maybe legal issues with the way the document was written and that the lawyer was going to take a look at it to kind of shore it up.
Okay. And then the next question I had was like, how long would that last? How long would you be in charge? Is there a time limit? Is it extend out? I was just curious, because like, say eventually you wanted to move on to some other project, and, you know, who would oversee that?
Sure, I think
Just
that
curious.
should all be in that ordinance
That
as
should
well.
be included, right.
Yeah, like
Okay.
term limits, so to speak.
Well, I mean, if somebody wants to, I mean, but we can just have an idea, figure out. I mean, if you're doing well and it's really doing robust and people are loving it, man,
I
absolutely.
mean, I'm available to be a garden enforcer, so, just,
Oh,
you know.
well, hey,
Oh, boy.
signing you up.
You're a man that wears many hats, huh?
Just a couple.
Any other questions for us?
Well, we really respect and appreciate, I think you have a lot of support here from the park board. We need to get more detail, a little bit more detail, a little more information, and,
The land, or if that's,
And see if that's feasible to move it over, and doable.
if you ladies got time, go out there and look at what I'm talking about. I think you would be more pleased with that. I really do, because there's a walkway coming from the access road. I think you got the concrete pad there for a potential for a little metal shed for, let's say, you know, ladies can't carry all these gardening tools with them. They could rent a locker there, another way to make revenue.
Right.
Rent a locker for $50 a year or whatever.
Is that where there's picnic tables?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, exactly.
I know where you're speaking of.
I think that concrete might have been removed.
No, it's there.
Is it?
Yeah.
It's not the stuff that was the curbing, like curbing?
There's a bunch of picnic benches.
Right,
on
okay.
it right now, but
And
yeah.
that's a slab? Okay.
so I think maybe perhaps in the interim, just to have someone that you can interact with, possibly it could be Tyler McLeod, the park superintendent, or someone that he would designate, and then just to kind of like, if you have questions, and then ultimately it'll all come back here. So, yeah, we like what we're hearing, but we need more information.
And that would be helpful for us, too, to have someone to be our kind of,
Right, get some guidance and
Yeah.
help. And
I think it's wonderful. I really do. I do think it's a good thing.
Thank you.
well, we'll structure it that way, and we'll talk with Tyler and see in what way we can set something up, maybe.
You might want to, if you're going to include Tyler, then you might maybe have somebody from the town council too, because Tyler's new, and
Yes.
he's got a lot of stuff on his platter right now. He's trying to get his feet underneath him, so it might be like myself or Jerry Sweats, because we started initiation the negotiations. So
Okay.
I don't mind helping, but if we put it all on Tyler right now, he's trying to learn everything and get programs started. So I don't want to burden him too much. I'll help out if I have to. I don't have a problem with it, but I don't want to see him burdened too much.
Okay, we'll let you guys
Seen your resume.
talk that out.
You're
So,
fine.
thank you for that, Wayne.
You're welcome.
Ladies, thank you so much.
Thank you for your time.
Appreciate that. Moving to item number 5, new business. We don't have anything really on the agenda, but I'm going to bring up one thing for new business, and that's going to be, I'd like to formally introduce, it's been kind of a big gap we've had here without having a park superintendent. We did a lot of vetting. We looked at several people, and we came up with a candidate, and he's accepted the position as park superintendent. He hails from, I believe it's Goshen, and he's extremely qualified. He has a very strong resume. And I believe he's a big Ohio State fan. It's kind of, so at this time, I would like to formally, from the board and from Wayne Pondinas, recognize Tyler McLeod, the new park superintendent. And Tyler, if you could, just for a minute, if you want to just speak, just kind of give something to say there. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Mike. No, I want to thank the park board for the opportunity to serve St. John. Prior to this, I worked for the city of Goshen for 2 years. And then prior to that, I worked for the town of Syracuse for 7 years for their park departments. It's been a good first week. You know, it's a lot to take in. It's been obviously easier with a teammate like Gabe, who really gets after it, as you guys well know. But the seasonal staff as well has been outstanding. Many of which are here in attendance tonight. You'll hear more about them a little later. But no, I just look forward to learning more about St. John, you know, becoming involved in the community and finding ways to improve the facilities and expand the programming.
Thank you, Tyler.
Welcome.
I know Tyler was very strong with Director of Recreations and that's one area we're going to grow, and we're going to see some things accomplished.
One other thing, new business.
Yes, and thank you for that, Mike. We do have another park board member, Patrick Conley, and this is Patrick Conley right here. I'd like to welcome him to the park board.
It is my understanding we're going to be getting one more park board member.
Are we talking about that, or?
Well, I think you talked to the attorney about that.
And we are investigating, the park board presently has 4 members, and we are looking into adding a 5th member to the park board. If you have any comments for that?
By statute, the park board must be a minimum of 4 people for purposes of voting. There's also permitted, obviously, a liaison from the town council as well as potentially from the school town. But not as voting members. So to have a 5th voting member, that would require a change to the ordinance. It is permitted by statute, but it does require action by your legislative body.
Thank you, Nicole.
Okay. All right.
Moving on to item number 6, old business. Basketball court repair restoration at Civic Park, Lancer Park, Larimer Park, Heron Lake splash pad maintenance, Harlan Park fencing and enclosure. And Tyler, could you comment on these?
Yeah, I just wanted to briefly revisit those items. So the basketball court repair at Civic Park and Lancer Park, Flex Court has received the deposit and we should be on their schedule soon. For Larimer Park, Gabe and I met with St. John Paving and then T&J Landscaping. They recommended for us to have the work done to the basketball court first and then follow with the repairs of the baseball field. But yeah, we should be on St. John Paving's schedule soon as well. They did receive, as part last month's board meeting, they have received that contract.
Okay.
The Heron Lake splash pad maintenance, that continues to be, unfortunately, an issue. We did get a quote for a new controller that was in your packet. There was a water break that flooded the conduit and damaged the new controller that was just replaced. I believe Craig has reached out to the insurance company to see if they would help replace that. But it is operational again, thanks to the hard work of Gabe and his crew. Right now, the updated hours are Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m.
That's great. That was much needed.
And then the Heartland Park fencing and enclosure. We received an additional quote after last month's meeting for the dumpster enclosure at Heartland Park.
What is that?
That was included in your packet as well. It came in a little lower than the previous quote. So I just wanted you guys to, for your consideration, to review that. It was from Reeves Fence Services.
I had two things in follow-up. One in the basketball court at Larimer, P&J, he mentioned me after you guys walked away, and I know I texted the gate, but I didn't know if it got translated. They definitely don't recommend putting in the hoops before you do the blacktop, because really don't know where they're gonna put it, what's gonna be a height or low, because if you put it in, it's solid. And if they decide to go up 4 inches or 6 inches or something, you might lose your 10 foot for that
Right.
basketball rim. And he said definitely you wanna think about doing that after the project. I don't know if it's gonna mess up anything with, I forgot their names. But with the guys that are putting the rubber down, or the hoops in. And then the second thing with the Heartland Park fencing, I believe we approved that already to be paid and for fence masters, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Are we wanting to redo that, or?
Well, this quote came in after, I believe, the last month's meeting, so,
So it's cheap late, so really we don't.
I think there was there's a reduction in
There-
that.
it is.
Is Gabe here? Is there not a reduction in that, Gabe? You came up with a different offer and it was cheaper?
So it was about 2 or 3 days after the original meeting, and you guys approved for the fence enclosure and the repair of the existing fence around the outside of the ball fields. This is $800 cheaper. I've been trying to get a hold of Fence Masters since there is no contract signed, just you guys okaying the expenses, to see if we can get that price down. He keeps putting me off, saying he'll get back to me. He knows what needs to be discussed. So like, he hasn't gotten back to me. So instead of saying, can you match this or do this, I'd like for you guys to just make a amendment to your motion from last meeting, just to, because I believe you made the motion to have Fence Masters make those repairs, but if we can make some kind of motion to have the repairs made by 2 separate companies, and then we could save the town or the parks $800 off the bat.
Are they fixing all the fencing too, and all the plastics? I didn't see
Fence
anything.
Masters would still fix the existing, the old fence, because they put the fence up. And so with PVC fencing, I learned that whoever installed it will only do the work on the fence that they put in. And that's the only reason why I had to go with Fence Masters. Since they were there, I figured might as well have them, because it should be cheaper to do all in one. And I did get a second quote from Reeves, but they came in too late. Again, there's no contract signed, so we can still press forward with the current like motion that you guys passed from last meeting, or we can change it up and just make a new motion or a amendment to the old motion to go with Fence Masters for the old fence, and then for the enclosure, go with Reeves Fencing.
I thought part of it was because we were already doing Fence Masters, that's why we wanted to stay with them.
Correct, that was part of it too, yes.
Their bid, I know it's higher, but that was also including the other fence. So that's, because like Reeves is at, what, 4,500? You
Yeah.
have to add the other $1,000 basically to bring it to 5,500.
So they actually broke it down. They actually broke the whole thing down, was broken down to each one, so I think it was 900 alone just to fix that fence or something odd. Something odd. I don't have the numbers in front of me. For Fence Masters.
950.
950. So that doesn't include, so that's still $800 more, even with the enclosure. So the
It
enclosure
was, it was
separately broken down-
$61.30.
Right.
So,
President,
Yes.
the action was taken. The bids were brought in, or the quotes were brought in at the time, and this board took action in approving that contract, or approving that offer, regardless of whether or not a contract was signed. The action was legally taken by this board by their vote in approving that. That's not something now you can go back on.
Okay.
Okay, fair enough, thank you.
He said today, I talked to him actually, 'cause I didn't know this part was coming, because the whole baseball thing, we're looking to get, so we had some issues over the fence. So he came out today and everything, he said he replied and said he'd take $300 off of his original price to you.
Okay, that's
I
fine.
don't know if that, whatever, that.
No,
would be
that's better than
$300
nothing,
less,
right.
I'm guessing off of the 6130.
Is it okay to ask that, to the, fence company, if they can come down off their quote, or?
He said he responded by email to that. He said he could take 300 off.
That's fine.
And again, he could just be.
I didn't know the whole legalities of the situation.
Yeah, I don't know on that. That $300.
Would that be okay to do that?
If that's something that, in the process of, for whatever reason, that they are modifying that based upon, you know, a work or line item in there, that they are reducing based upon the previous contract approval, they just need to understand that this is not contingent upon them getting the contract.
Right. Nothing was said about other contracts, or I just asked if you could simply come down.
Like I said, if it's something that they're modifying within the line item or within a line item of that offer to, of where they're specifically or of determined costs or something of that nature are going to be modified, then yes, that can be changed accordingly. But just so long as that's not, you know, an understanding from them of that this contract
Okay.
would change or that it would be awarded elsewhere.
Thank you for your help. Appreciate it.
Don't go nowhere. Stay up there.
On this controller for the aquatic pad, Gabe got the price down. The first one was what, 5,200, 5,800? By him talking to the company, he's got it down to 3,900, so that's a big savings for the town. And I want to thank him for that, because without him asking questions, it wouldn't have got lowered like that. So, thank you.
Can you go now, Wayne?
Thank you, Gabe. Thank you, Nicole. Any other questions on the old business? Any other comments, Tyler?
No, sir.
I think we're good. Then we'll move on to item 7, reports and correspondence. Board members, any correspondence, reports, anything?
I know I had, I've been in contact, I think a lot of the members, the baseball took a pretty significant hit last Monday with that storm. There are 4 sets of bleachers, 3 of them definitely have some damage, 2 of them pretty much totaled. I have been gone out and finding, some people are getting back to me on the prices and stuff. The fence, there's probably about 50 to 60 foot of the fence, that whole top of the fence is actually pushed over probably 3 foot. Some of the bases that came out a little bit and everything, fence master came out, I thought we were doing some reason, I called them. They came out and they said the majority of the fencing out there, they can actually use a comb along, which I think is just a crank thing.
Yeah.
And they can straighten out the majority of the fencing. When it pulls up out of the dirt, that area that's void, they can put concrete in there, which actually stabilizes that. He said he believes in 1 or 2 posts might have to like reset it, but he believes everything else they can just remove. So that's something that's going to be significantly cheaper than what we originally said. The bleachers, paddock bleachers and repair service, they're out of, I think, Lockport. They're coming out Thursday morning. He said with the bleachers, they do tornado, all kinds of damages, you know, the bleachers. They build like Central style bleacher, they do everything. So that's common for them. He says they actually have welders in their trucks so they can cut the aluminum, because they obviously cannot bend it. That will ruin its integrity up and everything. But they can on scene come out, replace it, repair it. He's like, from the looks of it, we definitely have 2 that are shot. Out of those 2, he thinks he can repair the other 2. He said, well, we might have to replace 2 of them. Ballpark, and again, that's just by going online, they're about $1,000 each, buy brand new plus shipping.
Does this fall under national disaster on the insurance?
Well, that's, the issue we're having here is who pays for this. Because the baseball, the town and the Parks Department both together are 2 different entities that own the parks. They're the leaser. The baseball, they're the leasees, so they actually lease it. And there's a lot of fine line in between lines. That's I don't have that awesome education, so I can't figure it out myself. I know you read through it a little bit. Depending on how you read it, you can kind of see it different directions. I mean, basically, the baseball is in charge of repairs, maintenance, fixing up, keeping everything up to normal. This is something more of like what you're saying. This isn't something normal. This is something that's more significant. That has been some huge damage. Baseball they put over $70,000 just in the baseball fields this year. I don't want to go on all that because we've gone through all that. They're kind of tapped out with their money right now. They asked for air conditioning at Civic Park this year. The town refused them on that. You know, they're like, can we get some help possibly anywhere? So I know it's gone to you. I'm bringing it up to us. Like, I don't know if the town council can help us out here. If, the Parks Board, we can help out a little bit. Something, that's. I'm kind of.
Can I address that a little bit
Yeah,
for you?
yeah, we're trying to get direction here on
Right.
where this is going as far as the park board's responsibility, if you have some insight.
Right. So as he mentioned, we have the lease agreement with St. John Youth Baseball, and it does say that I'm assuming under normal circumstances, they're responsible for repairs and maintenance of anything that's within certain boundaries of basically what's out there. I put a question into Dave Westland as the town attorney, and Nicole, if you could just follow up with him as well. I did email him and also follow up with a phone call, just to get guidance from him on whose responsibility it is ultimately. Nothing saying whether or not the council's willing to do anything to help out with this. It's just a matter of what, do we have to do first as a basis of understanding. So it could turn out, based on what you're saying, that if you can repair most of that fencing with a come along and just put some concrete in, it may cause the overall repair to fall below the town's deductible for property damage. And so at that point, it might just become a question of who's going to actually just do that work. Our deductible for property damage is $2,500. So based on what the information that you gave me before, obviously that would have far exceeded, that deductible. So it was worth potentially putting in a claim for that. In the event that it is the town's responsibility. So it's a little unclear based on that agreement in terms of property damage situations, whose responsibility that it is. So I've reached out to Dave so that he can review that document and give us some guidance on that. But if it turns out that it is a possibility for the town to submit a claim for that, if it exceeds the deductible, I'm more than happy to continue pursuing that. I have reached out to our agent, and they have started a claim. The adjuster hasn't gotten in contact with me yet, but will very soon. So if you could get me whatever information you have with regard to, final costs that you come up with for all that, that'll be helpful for me to know, which direction to go with that. And I'm not speaking to whether or not the council is willing to do anything to help out with the situation in the event that it is the St. John Youth Baseball's responsibility, but I, willing to help out with whatever I can as far as the insurance side of things is concerned, and communicating with the council on ultimately what they want to do and the board and vice versa. So that's kind of the current situation as far as that insurance side of things is concerned. So I'm kind of waiting to hear back, like I said, from Dave Westland on that guidance, and then I guess we'll go from there.
Can we just reach out to like the insurance company and just see what they say, or?
We have.
Okay.
We have, and they've asked us to determine responsibility, and then based on that, we can go forward with a claim. If the town does not have responsibility, we can't submit a claim. So that's what I'm trying to find out right now.
Mr. President?
Yes.
First and foremost, my understanding is that the damage with this, part of this was on what is town property and part is on parks.
Correct.
So for purposes of that, the determination of a separate policy in the name of the parks?
That, I've reached out to our insurance company today to ask them that question about whether we have separate policies or it's all under the same umbrella. I don't have that answer yet.
Okay, because that's obviously,
That's an
in
issue.
that sense, the first question. Because the property is titled, some specifically as the town and some specifically as St. John Parks and Rec.
Correct.
Either separate policies or whatever the separate
So
line items and covers, and that could be, because it could even be two policies if that's the effect.
Correct. So the damage that was done to the bleachers is on property owned by the parks, and the damage that was done to the fence, which may be a lot easier to fix now that you've mentioned what you have with the come-along being an option, that's located on town property.
And I have not seen that lease, but I'm anticipating if that has standard language in that respect, if you look at it in the global perspective of damage to parcel or damage to property being what a tenant would be causing, mischief, paint damage, whatever may be, something of that nature, versus something that would be more global. And if that is falling under the classification of storm, then that's most likely going to fall to the town.
And if it turns out that it's all under one policy, then the deductible may be able to be met and worth considering pursuing.
I got a question
claim.
here real quick. Excuse
If
me.
it's separate parcels, then it may not be, then a deductible
separate
may,
policies, yeah.
it may fall beneath the deductible amount, so it may just be something that we have to take up as a direct repair.
The majority of the damage is the bleachers, right?
The bleachers and the fence.
Right.
The fence is what we're worried about. I put in a lot of fencing out there.
Who originally purchased the bleachers?
That's the town that purchased all that.
The town purchased it?
I believe so, the majority of that was like.
Wouldn't matter
I
though.
think it was the first. We had that before the actual Heartland was built. The Beirut's we kind of consider three different things. You have the Babe Ruth field, you have the girls softball, then you have the Heartland 4 fields. Even though the whole thing is Heartland Park, that's kind of how we differentiate it. But the Babe Ruth was the first one built, and that was like about 18 years ago, 20 years ago, that was put in.
Okay.
And I think those bleachers are that old. That's why it's just amazing how some this one storm that blew away.
Right. Okay, thank you.
And if you look at it in the context, the best way I can kind of compare it is if you look in the context, if you're a renter in an apartment and a storm comes through the apartment, you know, it's going to be the property owner, the landowner that's going to repair it. On the other
Correct.
hand, if you start a fire in your apartment and that's how all your property is damaged, it's
Right.
going to be on your own. So kind of that differentiation, I have to imagine, is probably some general lease terms of what they have in there. Obviously, I'm stating that without having seen it, but just kind of give you a mindset of where you're going or what you're looking at or anticipating moving forward.
Okay.
And I did forward it to,
To Dave, yes? Or
to
today,
Dave,
Mr. Chairman.
and I can forward it to you as well. I know that I've tried to send you a number of things, and your emails have bounced back for some reason. Has that been corrected? Have you heard that from anybody else from the town?
Nope.
No?
Although I do see in the minutes there's a T missing, so I don't know if that makes a difference, but it would be the same with Dave.
Yeah, and I know a few others have had the same problem on a couple of occasions, so.
Really?
Yeah, I'll try to send it to you, though, because I did forward it to Dave.
Okay.
So
All right.
if the bleachers is owned by the parks, could the park insurance, I mean, could we just ask them about that?
Yeah, and it's probably under the same insurance, and so I have put a call into them to ask them if Parks is separate or if it's all under just the umbrella of the town.
Okay.
So once I have that answer, I'll let you guys know, and then, again, the deductibles come into play. If it's below the deductible of 2,500, then it's just gonna be a direct repair. If it's just, like you said, the two sets of bleachers, $1,000 a piece, it might fall, depending on how much extra cost there is associated with that, might fall below the deductible. It wouldn't be worth filing a claim.
They're still gonna have to fix the other two.
And then, yeah, so at the end of the day, we just need a final cost on what that's gonna cost. And that'll help us determine what to do.
Okay. Anything else, Mike?
No, that's,
Good.
Johnny? Patrick?
no, sir.
Thank you. That's good.
Okay?
Thank you. Staff? You wanna,
Yeah.
right there?
So I did have one item. At the last meeting, you guys approved the contract for K&S engineers to do the boring testing on the Founders Park site and the Prairie West site. They've started the work on Monday of this week. And while they were doing the soil borings at the Prairie West site, they encountered some peat soils, which are unsuitable building soils. And unfortunately, this is becoming like a bad penny, but with regard to soil borings. But they did find some bad soil borings. And so what they've requested is permission to continue to dig until they find soil that's suitable, so that basically they get out of that peat. The cost of that is an additional $30 per foot of depth. I did send an email to you guys to this effect after that information was shared with me. So I'd just like to request the park board to approve, basically ratify my decision to continue being able to do the boring, so that we can find out how deep the peat soils do go, so that we know whether or not that's going to be an issue for the construction of the parking lot at Prairie West Park. So again, it would be the additional $30 per foot of depth. There's no estimate as to how much that is because they don't know until they dig, unfortunately. So that's the bottom line there. So I just would request the approval of the board to be able to continue to do that additional depth of digging so that we can find out what we're dealing with there.
Is there a certain depth, like they get 60 feet or something where it's like it's just not doable? Or no matter what, they can make it work? Or?
That's a good question. I don't know. And that's a good question. I don't know if there's a max.
Then wonder if they get all of a sudden they're at 60 feet and it's like, well, now we're paying for them to keep going and we can't, it's.
Maybe at that point, they just determine it's not worth it.
Right.
Maybe they'll notify us of that, to that effect. I mean, they did notify us immediately when they found out that they hit peat soils. Yeah, so it's quite simply that, just in order for the project to remain on track as much as possible, because I know everybody understands the need for some additional parking at Prairie West Park. And it's also tied to the grant funds that we hope to receive through Community Development Block Grant to assist with that, just to keep things on track. We want to make sure that we continue to do these soil borings.
And they were on site and there wouldn't be an additional charge.
No, there's no additional charge. They're already on site doing those.
That's for Founders,
Sorry?
for Founders,
This is for Prairie West.
Prairie West?
Prairie West.
Do you need anything else at Founders or no?
Not that I'm aware of at this point, no.
Okay.
I haven't been notified of any issues there.
So at Prairie West, they did 6 borings.
They did 6 borings, 2 of them
Which,
came back
which
bad.
borings are they? Are they pair or side by side, or is there one here and is there one there?
They,
Do you know?
I believe they're side by side, and
Are they the ones further to the west or further to the east?
I think they're further to the east, but I have to verify that for you.
Because maybe we don't have to use that part, that area,
It's possible.
because there's 5 spaces going to the east, and then there's maybe 6 or 8 going towards Pat's house, and then they come
Yep.
back out. So
Yep.
maybe, and I don't know what they need. It's only a parking lot. That's not going to put a building. But if they say there's a problem, then
Yeah,
we
what's-
need to look at it.
What's the average depth of their boring?
The borings that we paid for, I believe we go down to a depth of 15 to 20 feet for what we paid for. And then if they determine that they've hit some bad soils, then they need to go deeper, which is what's happened with other town projects, as we're all aware.
I mean, I'm clueless to this, but just for asphalt, they
Yeah.
got to go deeper than 15 foot?
Well, the weight of cars, yeah, so the weight of cars on top of bad soils, yes, that's an issue.
Okay.
And they're also putting gravel down too. So there's going to be some weight there. But
Yeah.
they're the engineers. Hopefully they know what they're doing.
So no, the project itself
I
does
just
not-
wanted to know. I mean,
St. John has a lot of that.
No, the
Oh,
the
yeah.
project, the depth of the project is absolutely not an issue, from the standpoint of the construction itself. It's the weight of what goes on top of that that's the issue.
okay.
I think maybe like what Mike was saying, maybe to cap it, I mean, you just don't want them to keep, I know what you're saying, they're gonna dig, but if you can get that answer and then,
Well, if you want to set a number that you're comfortable with, and then if we need to go beyond that, we can address that.
okay. All right, well, under those circumstances, if you guys are comfortable, we can, consider a motion for KNS vendor, continue doing some boring at an additional $30 per foot
Mhm.
at Prairie West.
I'll second that motion.
I mean, if you could put in there, if we could find out a minimum, like, if they say, well,
Well, we're gonna cap it, it's not
like
gonna
40
be,
feet or something, have them, you know what I'm saying, like, have that in there somehow, I don't know how you word it.
Maybe just make it 50 to be safe.
That's
If
right.
you want it, if they go down 50 feet, then we're gonna have to really consider whether or not we want to move forward with, designing the project so that it's in the area that they've, they hit the bad soils.
And maybe you need to talk to Ken Kraus and say, what's customary for this? How far can we go down? If we go down 20 feet, are we wasting our time to go any further?
Yeah,
There's no sense in wasting money, but you do want to improve it.
yeah. And like I said, we just got notified about this yesterday. I spoke to Ken yesterday. I told him I would bring it up to you guys today. I did briefly mention it to Mr. Bovat and Tyler yesterday during a meeting we had, and yeah, so that's where we're at with that. I do know that the council wants to pursue that project, and obviously there comes a point, though, where we have to determine whether or not it's feasible to move forward.
I got a motion on the floor, I'll second
Right.
the motion. Do we want to make an amendment to it, or how do we do that? Or do we just want to leave it as is?
well, I think there's an understanding that,
Right.
that there's, it's gonna be capped. It's not gonna be indefinite. They're not gonna
What I'll
go to
do is I'll
China
have
with
them
this.
notify me if they get to a certain depth, and, and then discuss whether or not we want to go any further. So,
Yeah, so would you guys make a motion to okay it per the conversation with Ken Kraus and the engineering as to what his recommendation would be? And he might say, hey, you might have to go 40 feet, and you might want to just say, forget it.
Okay,
I mean, if you can do something like that, I think that might be good. Make your contact with Ken, and then you make a recommendation, hey, we'll okay this, but we want to talk with Ken Kraus, get his verbal, communication in there, and if he says we can go down another, 10 feet, and if we reach bad soil still, then maybe we need to kind of do something else, maybe rearrange the parking lot somehow.
he's the one who notified me.
Right, yeah.
He's the one who contacted me and notified me that there was a problem, so, and he was the one who recommended that we continue digging, so, but I'll reach out to him and I'll
Yeah.
ask him to, email us a recommendation on, what he thinks, where we're at a point where we might want to consider adjusting this.
Okay, and then let me rephrase the consideration for a motion to dig an additional, what's the gentleman's name?
Ken Kraus.
Ken Kraus Engineering on their recommendation, how far to go down and continue the boring at $30 an additional foot for Prairie West. We have a
Is there a
motion.
motion already on the table?
Well,
Was, yeah.
You made the motion, I seconded it.
Okay, then that
can't do that.
motion, Johnny?
Yes.
And we're are you withdrawing the motion?
No, I'm keeping my motion.
And we have a motion on the table.
On the recommendation, what Mike just said.
So
Um,
are you
So
modify
we
your
have to- we
motion?
have
We-
to-
So
we
we'll
have to-
modify
Go
it.
back and then redo it.
Yep.
Okay.
Or if you're modifying.
All
your
right,
motion.
I will second the motion on the modified suggestion of Mike's statement.
No, I'm sorry, it's your original motion. So if based upon what Mike is recommending, if you are modifying your original motion accordingly?
According to what Mike just recommended, no, I'll keep it. Is that what you're asking? I mean,
You're keeping your original motion?
no.
We have to
So
address
I'll
that
modify
before we
it.
can hit Mike's modification.
Okay,
think
I
what
will
you-
modify
I think
my
you wanna
motion.
modify your original
So you're
motion.
modifying
I
your
will
original
modify
motion
my original motion on Mike's recommendation.
to reach out to,
To reach out to Ken,
Ken Field.
Ken
Kraus.
Cross Engineering.
Kraus Engineering.
Yes.
very well.
Thank you, Nicole.
Are you seconding?
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you.
We need your help, thank you.
All right.
Anything else from the staff?
No, you just have you voted?
Yes.
You did, you
Oh, no, we didn't vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
This time, reports and correspondence, town liaison.
Yeah. I'd like to thank all the college kids and high school kids that were involved in our program. We did the interviews, and well, we had a lot of good kids. Almost all got hired. We had one girl, she's in high school, or one lady, another high school gentleman. He would be here right now, but he's doing the bean bags. We had, well, it was Taylor, you had Ben, they're both high school kids. They got 20 hours each. They done an outstanding job. Stephen, he's also in the National Guard, so he took 2 weeks off, and I applaud him. He's not here that I can see, so he done an outstanding job. Sebastian, Giovanni, and Ray, all great people, kids. They're respectful, hard workers. If your parents are here, you did a good job.
Cool. Could they stand up so you know who they are?
Yeah.
There you go. Thank you, guys.
So they're all here except, Ben. Like I said, Ben is doing bean bags, and Stephen, I don't know what, he's not here, he couldn't make it. But again, they worked hard, they laughed together, they sweated together, they even got poison ivy together. Great job. And my idea for having the summer help was to just make a little dent, and they did more than that. I compare it to building a house. You dig a hole, you put the footing, that's all I wanted to do. They put the footing in, they put the foundation up. They did excellent. And I told them the other day, I went to visit them, it was their last day. I said, it's report card day, and one of them said, we got an A. I said, no, you all failed. And they looked at me, I said, you all failed, but you got to come back next year to work. And I know the college kids are probably going to come back. They're going to do internships. You guys are fantastic. May God bless you in everything that you do. Hopefully you come back. If not, that's fine. The high school kids, they're more than welcome to come back. You surprised me on all the work that you did. I would go out to job sites, and they're respectful. Yes, sir, no, sir, and they show you how good they are. They got tables like this. There's 4 of them, I think, in their break room, and they could have put them all straight. They wanted to face each other because they said that's more respectful. You don't get that from kids, So I appreciate everything you've done, and I thank you.
And if we could get you guys just to hang out for a few minutes after the meeting, I'd like to get a picture of you. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Wayne. Anything
welcome.
else?
No, that's it.
And from the park board, we thank you also, and just as a stepping stone, to let you know, if you can endure and work with someone like Gabe, that's gonna really advance your careers, and it's gonna help you.
I would like to say one other thing. There was one other girl, Jessica, and she didn't go into the park program, but she went into, she was a yoga instructor. So I want to thank her too, and I forgot that, I'm sorry.
Thank you for that, Wayne. With that, we'll move on to item 8 and consider payment of bills.
I make a motion to approval of the payment of bills.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Yeah.
I'm sorry, aye. Tyler distracted me.
Sorry, guys.
Item number 9, any public comment? Okay. Item number 10, consider adjournment.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I will second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. That concludes the park board meeting.
We got choked there the last 2 minutes.
I didn't know how to,
I'm looking at him and you're like moving on.
I didn't know how to back up. I didn't know how to reverse it.
I knew you had to do a second, then I didn't know how to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let her tell you how to say it. That's the easy way out.
I gotta go pee so bad.